Hello and happy Monday. My name is Destiny Rainey, and I am a sixth and seventh grade English teacher at Benford Middle School. And I am so happy to be here with you today, bringing you another lesson in literacy. So, to prepare for our lesson, you will need a notebook or loose leaf paper and a pencil. So, go ahead and gather those materials while I present my screen. All right, so once again, this is sixth grade English, and our focus this week will be organizational patterns. This is day one. So, our goal and objective for this week is to learn the skill of describing cause and effect relationships and their impact on plot, and also the skill of identifying the author's organizational patterns. So, today, day one, we're going to focus specifically on identifying common patterns of organizing text, including chronological or sequential order, comparison and contrast, cause and effect, and problem and solution. So, let's go ahead and learn. What are organizational patterns? Let's take a look at this document here so that we can understand better how authors organize their writing. So I want you to think, how might you organize material if you were writing a report about an event in history? For instance, World War One. If you were trying to remember the events that might have happened, you would most likely use chronological order, which is writing the events according to time. Or for instance, what if you wanted to talk about two different animals? For instance, an alligator and a crocodile. You might use comparing and contrasting. That means pulling out the similarities and the differences between these two animals. Let's dig a little bit deeper. Suppose you put together a jigsaw puzzle. You'd fit the pieces together to form a picture. But what if one piece were missing? You wouldn't be able to see the image as a whole. Authors have to fit their ideas together just as carefully. The way they organize information is called text structure, or what we more commonly call organizational patterns. Depending on their purpose, authors might choose to organize their ideas in different ways. They may present a problem and solution, order events from earliest to latest, which would be chronologically, compare and contrast people, things, or ideas, or explain cause and effects. Whichever method they choose, their sentences, paragraphs, and sections must work together to present information clearly and logically. Now, the chart that we have in front of you and I is an example of how each idea an author has works as a puzzle piece to build the structure of the text. This helps to develop the main idea. I want you to study this chart for me for just a moment. Now, on your sheet of paper that you have in front of you, I want you to make two columns, one column for Rome and one column for Greece. I want you to go ahead and write down each of the things about Rome in the Rome column and anything that you read about Greece under the Greek column. Go ahead and do that right now. Now, take a look at the chart below for me. It mentions the function. Now, the function is how the specific idea or sentence works. What is the purpose of that sentence? Well, sentence one says ancient Rome and Greece both began as city states. It introduces the topic of the paragraph, ancient Rome and Greece. Sentence two says Greece had no central authority, but Rome was the capital of its empire. It contrasts the way the two city states were organized, so it tells the difference. Sentence 3 adds information about what the Greeks were known for. And it says the Greeks were known for science, philosophy, and art. Now, what I would like you to do is to take a look at sentence 4. The Romans, on the other hand, were known for their military might and their civil engineering. I want you to think about what the function or purpose of sentence 4 is. Go ahead and take a minute to write that down on your sheet of paper or in your notebook. Okay, so sentence 4 actually contrasts the information that was provided in sentence 3. So that is its purpose. So sentence 4 says the Romans, on the other hand, were known for their military might and their civil engineering. So it tells what they were known for in contrast to what the Greeks were known for, as they were known for science, philosophy, and art. So, like the pieces in a puzzle, the parts of a text work together to make something bigger. As a reader, think about how the sentences, paragraphs, and sections work together to convey information and develop ideas. Remember that the parts are in order for a reason, just as a puzzle piece fits only where it belongs. This is how we get organizational patterns. All right, so now that we know how authors form or their organizational pattern, it's based on the purpose that they're writing for. We now are going to get specifically into the types of organizational patterns that they commonly use. So, sequential order or chronological order. Authors use this to explain events in the order they occurred or to explain the steps in a process. For instance, if you were making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and you wanted to show someone how to do it, you would give them you would list the order of steps and they are to occur. For instance, you would take out the bread, you would take out the peanut butter and the jelly. You would spread the peanut butter on one side of the bread and the jelly on it, the other side, right? And then you would put it together. So you're listing the steps. Now, as we said before, if you wanted to talk about World War I or World War II, you would put it in order of time. So you would put the events in order of time that they occurred. And that would be chronological order. Next, we have cause and effect. Authors use cause and effect to explain events or causes that result in other things to happen. For instance, if you overslept, you could miss the bus. Or you overslept and you weren't able to eat breakfast, you had to rush out the house to catch the bus. So you were hungry at school. It winds up being a domino effect. One cause can have multiple effects. Okay, you oversleeping could mean you didn't have time to eat breakfast. It could also mean that you missed the bus, and it could also mean that you were late for school. So those are three effects of oversleeping. Next is compare and contrast. And authors use compare and contrast to explain what is similar or different between or among people, places, things, or ideas. And as you can see on the screen, we commonly use the diagram called the Venn diagram to show our comparison and contrasting. And then we have problem and solution. Authors use problem and solution to state a problem and list one or more possible solutions, and sometimes the pros and cons. Look at the example on the screen. The milk was spilled. That is the problem. And the solution was to get a paper towel to clean up the milk. All right, now that we know the different organizational patterns and we know why authors use these particular organizational patterns, let's practice. So, I want you to take a look at the chart in front of you. We have each of the organizational patterns in one column. We have the reason why the author might use them in the center column, and then the example column is blank. I'd like for you to help me complete this chart. So on your sheet of paper, we're going to go one at a time, and I want you to list one example for the particular type of organizational pattern. Let's go ahead and start with sequence or chronological order. Can you think of an example where you might read in a text where an author uses a sequence or chronological order? Take a minute to write that down now. All right. If you possibly put anything like a recipe for baking cookies, or perhaps when you read a magazine article recounting the invention of something like the laptop, then those would be correct answers. Let's move on to cause and effect. Go ahead and think of an example for cause and effect and write that down. All right, remember, our answers may vary, and that's okay. An example would be an article about the causes of heavy traffic in populated cities, and or a blog about the effects of pollution. Let's try compare and contrast. Where might you find text comparing and contrasting different things? All right. For instance, if you're wanting to travel and you wanted to decide on what country or destination to visit, you may read an article telling you about two different locations, the differences and the similarities, the pros and the cons of visiting either place. So it could be on a travel website, or you might find comparison and contrasting in a textbook chapter on geography. And lastly, let's take a look at problem and solution. Go ahead and write down an example of where you may find a text with an example of problem and solution. All right. You could possibly find it in an editorial on saving the rainforest. So there may be a problem, the rainforest may be becoming extinct or disappearing, or there may be something going on. So then they provide a solution of how to save the rainforest or an advertisement for an organizing system. All right, let's review really quickly with two questions. The first one says, which text structure tells about how things are similar and different? Go ahead and look at the multiple choice options and choose the best answer. All right, if you chose E, compare and contrast, then you are correct. Number two says, which organizational pattern explains how things happen in time order? Take a look at the multiple choice options and choose the best answer. All right, if you chose chronological order, you are definitely correct. Remember the example we gave about writing about the war? You would want to list the events in order that they happen. So remember, chronological always has to do with time. All right, so let's recap because we've learned a little bit today. We learned that organizational patterns, which is sometimes called text structure, refers to the way authors organize their writing. Authors have so many different ideas and so many different purposes for writing that they can shift the organizational pattern within one paragraph, essay, or passage. There are several types of organizational patterns, and they include sequence, compare and contrast, cause and effect, and problem and solution. Remember that the author's ideas fit together like a puzzle piece to create the organizational pattern. Knowing the organizational pattern can help you, the reader, to find things and develop the main idea. So let's reflect on what you've learned today. Which text structure did you find most interesting to read and why? I want you to ponder that a little bit and maybe write down a reflection to that question. Make sure that today you take time, about 20 minutes, to independently read a selection of your choice and see if you can figure out the organizational pattern in that text based on what we learned today. All right, that ends our lesson for today. I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Have a great day.